So, hello, everybody, and this is another episode of From There to Here, and I'm your host, Lawrence Temple. I have a multifaceted young man as my guest today. His uh, official job, I guess we would say, he is a guidance counselor at a middle school, which gives him a unique perspective on young people. But he has other hats and labels, and I normally like my guests to label themselves. So, this is Mr. AJ Brant. Mr. Brant, how are you?
I'm doing good, Mr. Temple. How you doing today?
I am doing just fine. So, all right. So, I told you I normally only tell you one question in advance, which I told you. So, it's this:
Right.
what would your elevator speech be? That is, if you're in an elevator, someone asks you to label your whole existence in the 10 seconds you're on the elevator. What would you describe yourself as in your elevator speech?
Well, quickly, I'll say it's probably changed over time, but at this moment, I would probably the first thing I'd probably say I'm a dad, I'm a father, I have an 11-year-old son, I'm a school counselor, um, and I'm just a good dude, man. I'm a laid back person, um, just love natural, genuine people, and I'm pretty much go with the flow, can get along with anybody.
I love that. And I love that you said your label, so to speak, has changed over time. Let's go back in time. When you were, say, middle school age, the same age as the kids you work with, how different is your life now from what you expected it to be at this age when you were in middle school? If that question makes sense.
Right. I would say maybe so more so when I was in middle school, I honestly didn't really think about life. And I think that's probably like a good thing. I was just living like I knew I was good in sports. I knew I was a pretty good athlete. I knew I was a good student. But
Okay.
I never even really thought about like making it to the NFL or NBA or anything. I was just kind of just out here just living, going to summer camp, going to Campbell Middle School.
Mhm.
And my mom was a teacher. I was at school all the time.
Okay.
Um, so at that age, nothing really. I kind of just knew I was gonna be something because I knew I was a smart person, and I knew I had like a work ethic, pretty good work ethic. So I knew I was gonna be something. But that age, I never really even considered um, what I could be or any of that stuff. Now I changed like probably once I got into high school
Okay.
and life kind of start say, okay, now you got to start making some decisions and start
Mhm.
preparing for that future. So it probably changed a little bit once I got into high school.
That makes sense. Okay, that's common. I know,
Mhm.
as a teacher myself, I know we have career assignments and we at least start talking to kids, even in middle school, about, what do you think you want to be and that kind of stuff. How important do you think it is for kids to think about those things sixth, seventh, eighth grade? What are your thoughts about that?
I honestly think it's me working with the middle school age kids now. I really think it is important because I even think about somebody like myself. I think about all the different kind of jobs, even because I love sports.
Okay.
So growing up, growing up in Daytona, just kind of playing sports, I never considered everything else all the other jobs associated with sports other being the
Yeah.
one that's out there playing the sport. So I
Okay.
never thought about being an agent, an athletic trainer, anything in like a front office, a general manager,
Okay.
broadcaster,
Hmm.
film person. Like I never thought about any of that kind of stuff. The person that take care of the fields. Like I never thought about any of that stuff. So I do think it's very important, even at an early age, because I even think about stuff like I didn't really like science when I was
Hmm.
younger. But I'm like a science crazy person now. And I'm like, how in the heck did I not like this stuff? But it's because I didn't understand all the different cool jobs, all
Ah,
the different kind of real world, application that you can have with the different stuff. So I think it's very important at an early age. Cause I even like with my son, he's just coming into middle school. So
okay.
even at the elementary level, I think you should start kind of getting them thinking about like careers and possibilities that they're just not gonna naturally see, in our community.
Okay. And it doesn't, I co-sign that because I've worked at schools, uh, higher income schools, I guess we'll call it. And then I've worked at schools that were not. And I noticed that the kids from higher income areas, they seem to naturally know what
Yep,
things exist, I guess,
yep.
from their parents and stuff. Whereas kids from other lower incomes, they just don't know what things are out there
Yep.
except a few famous things, the movie star, rapper, what, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Right. And that's true because honestly, my son went to one of those elementary schools that are like more privileged, parents have a lot more money, a lot more resources, and they come
Mm-hmm.
and offer like honestly like volunteer a lot more stuff. So just kind of like the conversations that he'll have with his other classmates, like they
Mm-hmm.
talking about all kind of stuff and flight and engineering and all kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, like where'd that come from? He's like, well, yeah, well, Bobby's dad came in and he was telling us about engineering and he's been
Exactly.
able to do this or that. He works at Embry Riddle. So it's just like you said, making them aware because like I also have worked at other schools, do summer camps at other lower economic schools,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't naturally just get that in their everyday life. They don't get those. They don't get to see those other opportunities or the other jobs that are out there for them. They
Yeah.
just kind of see the same thing over and over and over.
That's exactly the experience I've had and my school experience. Now I know my father worked in Volusia County schools for 30 something years. My mother taught in the college world, but
Hmm.
I did not intend to go into education as to do something different than my parents or whatever, and they weren't trying to make me be a teacher either. I know, and your mom is a well-respected educator in our community. So how did you what was your process from going from 11-year-old kid to guidance counselor in public school?
But honestly, I fought it because my whole life I was like, ain't no way
Yep.
I'm gonna be a teacher. Just seeing, and honestly too, like honestly, just seeing my mom work so hard, and then honestly, even after she retired, feeling like she never got the full appreciation. Being an educator financially and just like actual appreciation, people telling you thank you, we
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you. Of course, you get that from some people, but you don't get it as much as you deserve it. Being an educator and definitely
Definitely.
financially. So I was always like, man, ain't no way. I'm not. Nope, can't do it. Won't do it. But I ended up. I used to be a DCF investigator, so
Okay.
that was a crazy job. Like I love the job, but it's a job that just kind of wears on you, and it's a job that you really have to take home with you. You never really off.
Okay.
So unless you out of the country somewhere. But if you're in town and you have that phone, you're still working. So
Yeah.
after doing that for about 6 years, I just had to find something different. So I was like, but I'm not working in education because my mom was like, I can hook you up, I can get you somewhere. You got degrees, we can get you a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, nope, I ain't working with them kids, can't do it.
Yeah.
Nope. But I ended up getting a job at Turie because they got a 21st century grant for an academic enrichment program for after
Okay.
school and summertime. So I was like, well, that's not working in the school. Like I'm not a teacher. I'm still working with kids, which is fine with me, but I'm not a teacher. I can't be there at this. So
Yeah.
I will come like in the afternoon and just kind of run the after school program and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then after working that job for a year and being at the school and working with the kids all the time, I was like, I could teach. I was like, I could work, and it's not as bad as I thought it would be. And that's
Mm-hmm.
how they wrote me in. Um, because after that, I never wanted to be a teacher because it's never like a specific topic or a specific like subject I wanted to do
Yeah.
or like just loved. But I like just working with kids overall about life and just stuff in general, just like general being a person. So I figured like I could do that in counseling, um, and still, work with the kids and not just talk about math or not just talk about social
Okay.
studies. I could talk about life and other stuff too.
Well, and um, well, that brings me to this because when I set this up, I wanted to hear about your own journey and then also some of your insight with kids. So I'm going to hop to the kids part.
Hmm.
If you could have the parents of middle and high school age students all sitting in a huge auditorium, and you got to tell them some of the two or three things that you feel are most important that they should be doing with or for their kids. Can you tell me what maybe two or three of those things would be from your experience?
Probably the first thing I would say is just to be present in your child's life, just overall, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
school, sports, whatever. Like even if they're a terrible student, terrible at sports, some people only gonna work at fast food places. Some people are not gonna have the highest paid jobs and stuff, but still be
Mm-hmm.
present, still support them, still love them. Because everybody not gonna be the brightest, everybody not gonna be the strongest, the smartest, but they still need
Mm-hmm.
love and support. And those people play a role in our society too. People like to look down on the janitors, the garbage men and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
if those people weren't doing that stuff, this world wouldn't be able to function. Our society wouldn't be able to function. So, just being present, regardless of the situation of where your child is academically or
Yeah.
whatever they're in, like still just be present and support them. Um, but then I would say I would get to the school, and it may sound bad, but I tell parents all the time, like stop relying on public school to teach your child everything they need to know.
Mm. Could you expand
Because
on that, please? That's big.
Um, because I mean, I feel a little bit different. I feel like education was a little bit different. Probably like when I was in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just didn't pay attention. I just didn't know enough. But with all the political stuff, and I'm not political at all, but all the up and down, back and forth changes, political this, we going this way. We got a new testing system this time. We changing curriculum. We taking this out. We adding this. So I just feel like as a parent, I tell parents all the time, if your child only goes to school and only goes to class and just does homework, they're probably not going to get what they really, really need. So I think it's parents' jobs to be
Okay.
like a supplement, not rely solely on public education. Like they definitely need public education, but you
Yeah.
also have to be that supplement at home to fill in any cracks or holes, any deficiencies that they may not be getting, or if they are getting everything, push them even further to try even harder. Try to go some goals further than because we even have some brilliant kids who
Mm-hmm.
but they kind of capped out at what public education can offer them. So those kind of parents need to be trying to push their kids even further, find other programs and stuff. And for the ones who are struggling,
Mm-hmm.
not just saying like, okay, what the teacher gonna do? What can I do as a parent at home to fill in those cracks?
I see that. Okay. I see that, and I do agree with you as someone who's slightly older than you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I I think the expectation has been for here recently for public school to do everything, and
right,
it wasn't ever designed to do
right,
that. Um, you talked about how we need people who ultimately work in every type of job, the glamorous one and the not so glamorous one.
right.
For the parent who is at least trying to put their child in a position, say for college, let's say down the
Mhm.
road, or for strongly academic things, even in trades or whatever. What are some things that you would recommend parents be doing on their end that can help prepare their child uh, for rigorous academics, whether that's rigorous academics in high school or even beyond? What could mom and dad be doing at home?
Um, I would say it's nothing. Unfortunately, like in our area, like when I lived in Tampa or been in other places or talked to other people that I know that work in education of more like populated areas or bigger areas,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot more outside resources and programs and organizations. But in our area, we don't have like a lot of big tech companies or that kind of stuff in our area. So
Okay.
I I honestly just feel like, and it's hard sometimes because even as a parent myself, and I work in education, you just have to really research and really try to find stuff that's what I mean about like going beyond and not just relying on the school. Like you
Okay.
really just have to go out there and find because there are programs. Most of the time, you're not gonna get a flyer handed to you saying, "Hey, these are all the programs that are available." But if you go out and search, you can find scholarships and all kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So I would say just probably just being like proactive about what kind of student you have, what they're interested in. If it's a student that's interested in more artsy kind of stuff, you can find
Mm-hmm.
art programs and different stuff
I see.
where they don't have to go to a camp where they're doing math all day. You know what I mean? If it is a kid who's into like science and engineering, Like it's STEM programs out there. Last year I found some free coding program from some company in California. I
Mm-hmm.
saw it on Instagram and I said I probably shouldn't click on it because it's probably a scam. But I clicked on it. But they gave so even though he didn't do it every day for a couple of days last year, he did these little coding programs and he thought it was so cool to learn that stuff and it was free. But
Uh,
it was something that I went out and found where it kind of landed in my lap, but it was something I actually had to go and sign up for.
okay.
It's nothing that like Volusia County schools offer. So I would say just in our area specifically, just kind of being proactive because you can find things, um, but you might have to drive a little bit. You might have to, you have to make that sacrifice.
Okay. I see what you're saying. It
Mhm.
won't come knocking on your door, but it's
Right.
out there.
Right. And I mean, in our age of technology, there are all kind of apps and like I see stuff all the time, like online for different kind of apps that for tutoring and all kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's gonna be stuff that you as a parent have to go out and get because it's not gonna be just it's probably not gonna be given to you or put right in front of you,
Okay.
presented to you, you know.
I've got that. Now I know I'm
Mhm.
talking with young people, particularly boys, but girls too.
Mhm.
You have an athletics background. Um, Now I have found, maybe you found something different, correct me. It seems like sometimes parents have an unrealistic expectation that if their child is in, say, high school sports, like I know of parents who have told their kids as freshmen, mama don't plan to be working more than 5 more years. Like they've
Right,
already decided their child is going to be an NBA draft pick, and
right.
you know. So I want to ask you one: what was your transition like from high school athlete, college athlete? Did you have pro aspirations, and
Mhm.
how did you transfer from that to the quote unquote real world? Could you talk about that part of your journey a little bit?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I just to start with to answer your question of where you started off from, I used to also work at Mainland, as a counselor. So
Okay.
I graduated from Mainland, played sports at Mainland. So I'm an alumni, an athletic alumni. So I've been through the recruiting and the process of everything. I always had good grades because mama wasn't gonna let that slip no matter what.
Right.
So education was never really a big issue for me. I just kind of always went to school, did what I had to do, and was still allowed to live in her house. So
Yeah.
it was all,
Yeah.
so I never really had to worry about grades. But when I worked at Mainland, and I don't talk about sports very often. I like to let other people talk about it, but I was a high school All American.
Okay.
So like I was actually somebody who was really good. And I had scholarship offers from probably every school in the country, maybe except maybe 4 or 5 schools.
Hmm.
And they're mostly like on the West Coast, like USC. I really wanted to go to University of Miami, but they were really, really good every time. And I'm short. And they were like, you ain't tall enough. So,
Okay.
but I took visits everywhere, went to a bunch of different schools and everything. So I kind of really understand, for one thing, like the athletic aspect and the actual like sports aspect. A lot of kids don't realize that there are millions of other kids out here working hard, trying to get the same thing that they're trying to get.
Okay. I'm back to you. Yes. So you were highly recruited. Now, and I remember knowing that back, at the time.
Yeah, and so a lot of times, but I was never anybody, and I always tell people too, like I was never anybody that really paid attention to like the rankings and all of that kind of stuff. I just played and just tried hard, and I just so happened to be good. Like I
Okay.
didn't, but I knew I was pretty good. But a lot of times, parents and kids have a warped sense of reality about how good they really are on like a national perspective.
Okay.
Luckily, when I was younger, I was able to go to different camps and see different part and meet people from other like I had 3 good friends, like 2 of them played in Tallahassee and one of them played in Jacksonville. But I met them younger, like maybe in the ninth grade, going to different camps. So
Okay.
I realized like just in our area, that means nothing because like I said, it's millions of other kids out here trying to do the same thing. So I kind of had a bigger perspective about what's really good
Okay.
and what's just okay for our area. So I think a lot of kids around our area kind of get a warped sense of reality because they're good in Volusia County, but they forget about there's thousands of other counties across the nation with kids doing the same thing or maybe working harder than you, trying to get that scholarship and
Okay.
stuff like that. But what happened to me was a blessing. Having a mom that always stayed on me, that didn't play about school. I had all these different scholarships from all over the country, and halfway through my senior year, got hurt and tore my ACL.
That's right. I
So
remember knowing that. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so once that happened, probably 80% of the schools took the scholarships away.
Okay.
Um, and I was gonna end up going to University of Georgia. I was already dead set. The only reason why is because I said I was leaving Florida. I'm getting out of Florida, but I ain't want to go too far. So Georgia, like right, Athens, like right
Yeah.
there, ain't too far away, but it's out of
Right.
Florida.
Yeah.
It's out of Florida. Um, but Georgia took the scholarship away. Like schools that had been calling me since I was in the 10th grade wouldn't pick up the phone anymore. Nobody returning calls. So
Okay.
that's like when I really started to understand, like, okay, this just not fun. It's not just fun anymore. You're just out here just having a good time. It's more like a business.
Okay.
It's starting to be serious.
Mm-hmm.
Because these people that was calling me every day, checking on me, you need anything, I can't get these people to call me back, answer an email or nothing
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Like just like at the drop of a dime. Um, so going to South Florida, I still had I went to USL, still went to USL because that was one of the schools that stuck with me. They
Okay.
kept, they kept on. It was like, we don't care if you get hurt 10 times, we still want you to come. Um, so I ended up going there and it was a great experience. I was always hurt when I was at South Florida. Um, 6 months after being there my freshman year, I had to have another surgery on the same ACL I tore. A year after that, I tore my other ACL. So
Wow.
it was just like 3 or 4 years of straight, just trying to be healthy enough to play. And then like having friends go to the NFL, but
Okay.
me still just being stuck there, still just trying to get healthy enough to play, but never really ever being healthy enough to play like a full season. Um, I know I went through like depression, down and stuff. Like I didn't know what it was at that time, but me being an adult man, realizing,
Yes.
it was a lot of times like I was depressed. My grades, like I never had an issue with grades. I almost flunked out of South Florida after that because I just stopped going to class and never had been that kind of student. It was just like everything just kind of seemed like, oh, whatever now. Um,
Yeah.
but like I said, having a mom who always just kind of stayed on me in school, like after I almost flunked out, that just kind of like woke me up myself. It was like, I'm tripping. Like I know I can do this stuff. But what happened was I actually had a real good coach. His name was Jim Levitt at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up leaving because I was gonna go to Cookman and play football at Cookman. So I left South Florida and moved back to Daytona. But got hurt again during the summertime working out. So ended up never even going to Cookman, going to Daytona State, just so
Okay.
I could still be in school. And one day, randomly out of the blue, my coach at South Florida, even though I had not been there for a year, he called my mom and said he had been looking at the stats and stuff and didn't see my name anywhere, getting any minutes or any plays or anything. So my mom told him I had got hurt again. So he said, I love AJ so much. I've always been a good kid. I want him to come back and I'll put him on scholarship and I just want him to be around the team. So I end up going back
Wow.
to South Florida and getting put back on a full athletic scholarship.
Wow.
I'm talking about everything like I'm still playing. I'm getting clothes, shoes, eat free, free apartment, everything like I'm there, but I was just around the team. So I was pretty much like a graduate assistant,
Okay.
but had not graduated yet. So I did I ran the meetings, did all kind of film stuff, all kind of stuff. So it was like I was kind of like an assistant coach for my position. Um, but what happened was, and like I said, when you get older, you learn like all this stuff is just not sports; it's a business.
Yes.
I coached the last year I had I ended up. What happened was he wanted to bring me on staff. So honestly, I was being nosy one day. Everybody was going somewhere, and I was in the offices. So I was, walking around, looking at people's offices, looking at stuff I ain't have no business looking at.
Yeah.
And I found a spreadsheet, like all the coaches' salary. And at that time, the coach who did like nothing, it was just like an old guy who just kind of hung around. He was just kind of there, he was just a funny dude. So he never really did anything, but he was on staff and he was all the way around. That guy was getting $90,000 a year. So I
Okay.
said, I'm about to start coaching because like our defensive coordinator at the time was maybe getting like $400,000 a year. I said, I can, like my position coach, the guy that I played for, was getting maybe like 150, like some 175. I was like, I think I could do this.
Okay.
So what happened was like I was a finance account major because I always wanted to be an account. I wanted to do something with money. Like that was I told you, it's nothing in school that I really, really like, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel I like money and I like having things. So if I know how to manage it, then hey, I ended up changing my major from accounting to criminal justice just so I could try to finish school real fast because
Okay.
accounting, like that was hard work. Like I used to be in there all night with that calculator and doing equations and formulas and
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Yuck.
But like criminal justice, like I can remember things. I can remember definitions, times, dates. So that's just more like memory. So I could go in there and just like cram and study and remember. So I went and changed my major to criminal justice so I could try to hurry up and finish, get my degree, and start coaching.
Got it.
My last semester to get my degree, the coach got into it with one of the head people at the school, one of the I can't remember one of like our official people at the school, and they fired him. So as you know, me not knowing, but as we know now, once the head coach gets fired from like like a college or NFL, they get rid of everybody.
Yeah.
So my plans of being a defensive back coach at South Florida, I had a couple more months and I'd be done. Everything was going smooth. Coach got fired. They said, AJ, we'll let you finish your degree and everything, of course, but we're not gonna hire you as a coach because we got a new coach coming in and he gonna hire
Okay.
all his own new staff. So I
Okay.
had changed my major, got a whole new major that I'm not interested. I don't know nothing about being a police officer, criminal justice. If somebody starts shooting, I'm going the other way.
Okay.
I ain't going to arrest nobody, nothing. So now I'm pretty much stuck with a major that I don't really want or I don't really feel like I can use. So coming full circle, that's how I ended up being a DCF investigator because that's something that I could get a job with my criminal justice degree. And to be honest, my mom, he was like, why you just want to go back and, finish your account and stuff? So I probably had about a year and a half, but I was just so burnt out from being in college, well, thought I was burnt out, but I was ready to be done, just being young and just ready
Yeah.
to stop going to school and be out here, just be able to live my life. Um, I was like, nah, ain't no way I can go back to school for another year and a half to be an accountant. I said, ain't no way.
I see that.
So I started working as an investigator.
But my teaching path was not what I expected. I expected to teach for a couple years and then go back to law school, and I should be in my third term as president of the United States by my original. So I understand how the path doesn't go the way you think, but all kind of
Right,
good stuff comes out of it once it gets where it is. Um,
right.
when
And
you
I'll say
mentioned,
too, I'll say I had to go back to school to get my master's. So even too, just
yeah,
like I always think about some of the stuff my mom used to tell me. Like, so once I finished my degree, got my criminal justice degree,
mm-hmm,
she said, AJ, you don't have any debt. You went to school for free. You on full scholarship. You don't have anything. Go get your master's. I said, ain't no way in heck. I just finished school and you want me to go back to school for 2 more years?
yeah,
Ain't no way. In terms, 10 years later, now I have a son. Now I have a full-time job, and now I'm going back to school to get my master's. I said, and she said, I told you, when you didn't have a son, you didn't have a full-time job, and you just all you had to do was wake up in the morning. That's when you should have got it. So it's stuff like that. I always think about like, yeah, she was right.
yeah,
I waited
yeah.
until I had all these other responsibilities to say, now I'm gonna go back and get this master's.
And that's something that try to tell kids too. I didn't make it
Hmm.
up. Is that get as much, however much education you think you're going to get, try to
Hmm.
get it as soon and as
Yep.
young as possible. I know life doesn't always let that happen, but yeah, it's basically just like mom said, pretty much.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I could have done it, but I was just being me, just being hard headed.
I hear that. We've all done that. I have about 10 minutes left, which is perfect for what I want to ask. One, you
Okay.
mentioned that you are a parent. Can
Hmm.
you tell us how has parenthood changed you as a person? If it
It
did.
definitely slowed me down as a person because I was like I'm always make sure my responsibilities are taken care of. So Monday through Friday, like I'm gonna be at work, I'm gonna be on time, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
work hard, I'm gonna do everything. But Friday at 3:30 to Sunday 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
and I was all over the place. And I probably was going somewhere, hanging out in the club, or doing all kind of stuff. Um, and just living,
Yeah.
just being a young man, doing a lot of stupid stuff, been doing a lot of stuff, risky stuff. Um, but I think I always wanted to be a father, and then I had a son too, so that was like I always really wanted a son.
Yeah.
So once I had my son, for one thing, I was like, for one, I love shoes and clothes and all that kind of stuff. So I want my son to have nice Jordans and all that. So
Yeah.
for the first thing was like, I can't spend all this money hanging out no more because he taking all my money now. We got to buy cribs and bassinets and all this stuff. So financially, it just kind of made me calm down. And then too, like, I didn't always have the best relationship with my biological father,
Okay.
but I always had a great stepfather. So it's like I saw the difference between like
Mm. Mm.
how I felt about my real father versus how I felt about my stepfather. And I would never want my son to feel negatively about me. So I've always been a super present parent. Like I'm changing diapers, I'm getting up in the middle of the night. I was doing all that, and I still do because, like I said, I want to be that parent. It was like my son, like I'm always there. I was
Gotcha.
across the country a couple of days ago, and that boy was calling me every day, and we were just talking. You know what I mean? So I always just wanted to be a real super present parent and somebody that was always there because I know what it felt like as a child, as a boy, not having that, but also having that from somebody else. You know,
Okay.
so
Well,
my stepdad definitely filled in that role, but knowing that I had another father who didn't treat me like my stepfather, didn't seem
yeah.
to care as much, I
Mm-hmm.
said I never wanted my son to feel like that. So I'm gonna do it like times 1,000. So I'll overdo it with him.
I hear that. I told I had Antoine Brown, who was a head baseball coach at Atlantic High School and now coaches
Mhm.
at Bethune. And he was one of my guests lately. And I told him the story of a student athlete that I dealt with who was at a game, and I saw his father there. And his father had a T-shirt on that said, "My son is number 7" or whatever. And then I saw the kid the next day and I said, "Hey, I saw your dad at the game. He had a T-shirt on, plus he looks just like you." And the young man got super angry
Mhm.
because his father only made a big deal about him and claiming him and stuff when he became a really good athlete. But when
Right,
he wasn't a standout athlete, he was not around, didn't treat mom well, and all that kind of stuff. And so we talked about that in my
right.
last interview.
And
Um,
honestly, that was one thing that kind of aggravated me being a high school kid because I told you
mhm.
I started as a freshman football player coming in at Mainland.
Okay.
And we had a really good team. We always had really good teams. And I didn't really, like I said, when I was young, I just kind of just played. I didn't really understand how good I was. I just kind of was living my life and just playing, having a good time being a high school student. But by the time I got in like to the 10th grade, 11th grade, I started to realize because I was being in the newspaper. They
Okay.
used to have like a little sports show that they play on Fridays where they show like the highlights from all over Florida. So I started being on TV a little bit. So I started like kind of saying, okay, I probably am like a little good. But that was one thing because you will always see stories about like pretty much like a deadbeat dad. But once the player, becomes really good and start getting some notoriety, that's when the parent comes around, the deadbeat dad comes back or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I'm a high school All American, and my daddy still ain't coming to the games. I'm like, well, dang. So that was one thing. Honestly, I thought by being a really good athlete, oh, he just gonna want to brag and everything. So at least he'll
Hmm.
come around then. But it didn't really, it didn't really happen like that. Everything kind of just stayed. So I was like, well, dang, like,
Wow.
what else I
Okay.
got? What else I got to do?
That's on. Wow. I appreciate that. I appreciate
Hmm.
that honest take.
Yep.
Wow. I haven't seen it that way. Okay. I get
Hmm.
that.
Because honestly, I said that's
Hmm.
one thing I thought like he gonna start coming. I'm in the newspaper. I'm on TV all the time. Like he about to start coming to these games because just he gonna at least just say that's my son. But it didn't really it didn't really happen like that.
Well, then I have two questions left in these few minutes left. One, I guess, is a statement to tell the world that you make a banana pudding, okay, that is at a level beyond a level beyond a level. So one, I want to put that out there. People need to contact you about that. So that's one.
I'm making some this weekend too. So when you said Miss Temple was in the back, I didn't want to mess up the podcast, but I am making some this weekend too. So I'll text you once we get done.
100%. It was a big hit at the family reunion. I want you
Okay,
and all of
good,
America to know that.
good,
Um,
good.
and the last one with my timing, about 3 minutes left for it times out. You mentioned your role as a father and the background, etc. If in these minutes left, if you wanted to give some advice to someone who is a father and maybe he's not with the mother, and this is a scenario I hear a lot. I hear a father say, well, I would do more, but the baby mama is blank blank. But the
Right,
child is still a child. What advice would you give to that father if he were willing to listen? That makes sense.
right. Well, I can't say that I am blessed because me and my son's mother are not together. But we co-parent like champs.
Right.
Our families get along. And I think that's more so because too, honestly, like we had planned to be together. It just didn't work out. It wasn't like a messy situation. It wasn't a
Right.
surprise. It
Yeah.
wasn't, it was like this was kind of planned. We were friends before, got into a relationship, decided to have a child, but it didn't work out between us. And both our families get along so well. Um, like neither one of us can really trip too hard, especially not me because my mom not even gonna let me act a fool.
Got that.
But I will say too, like to make sure that me and his mom have a good relationship. Like I do make sacrifices sometimes, doing stuff that I don't want to do. But I know for the overall, because I'm pretty sure she's done the same thing
Of
and
course.
agreed to do stuff times or whatever that I didn't want to do. When I was getting my master's, she was real supportive about not making me do a lot. I had like a lot of responsibility. If I wanted to do something, I could do it or whatever. So in turn, once I finished my master's, she went back to school to get her RN. So of course I had to give her the same support, respect, and everything. So if it was anytime she needed something, and she doesn't live in Daytona anymore, so we have to drive
Okay.
instead of meeting halfway. I'd be like, I just take them all the way. Like, do your work. So it's stuff like so. I have made sacrifices to make sure our co-parenting does go well.
Yeah.
But so I've never been like in that negative kind of situation, but I have seen it. And I would say just don't give up. I'm just the kind of person who, like, if his mom decided to move him, even though she wouldn't be able to, but let's say she wanted to move him to California, I'm gonna be looking for plane tickets to California.
Got
If
it.
I can only do whatever, if I got to go to the court system, I got to do. I'm just the kind of person like whatever you got to do, do it.
Well, hello. I'd just like to say a special thank you to Mr. AJ Brant for being our host today. He gave us interesting perspectives as a young man himself who works with young people. And I hope you got his perspectives on how parents can help better assist our kids in the navigating school and life beyond. And then his insights on the recruiting process and being an athlete and giving kind of a realistic story of what navigating that world is like was so valuable. And then lastly, him sharing his journey as a father and co-parenting and all of the things that go along with raising strong kids. I really appreciated it. As a former student of mine, is glad to see Mr. Brant become such a wonderful young man in our community. And I hope that you can take some of the lessons from his life and apply it to yours. This is Lawrence Temple, your host. This is From There to Here. See you next time.